If summer heat and activity left your lawn with bare patches and thin spots, then get Scott's Turf Builder Grass Seed. Fall's cool air and warm soil make it the best time to grow grass. Use Turf Builder Grass Seed to grow thicker, greener grass, guaranteed. It contains Scott's exclusive Water Smart Plus coating that absorbs 2 times more water than uncoated seeds. Feeds to jumpstart growth and protect seedlings against disease. And Scott's is the official lawn care company of Major League Baseball. Fall's the best time to grow seed and repair your yard. Pick up a bag of Scott's Turf Builder Grass Seed today. This is the Scott's Yard.
It's time for some straight talk. The big wireless companies charge a boatload for their superior network coverage. But guess what? Straight Talk uses the same cell towers but charges a lot less. Who knew? Well, now you do. And I do. So let's do something. It's time to switch to Straight Talk. Unlimited plans start as low as $35 a month on America's largest, most dependable networks. Straight Talk Wireless. Only at Walmart.
Savings may vary. A month equals 30 days. Please refer always to the latest terms and conditions of service at straighttalk.com.
Great to have you with us here on Friday the 13th, I might add. So we have to get some scary movies in the docket at some point.
You're right. I didn't even realize.
Remember as a kid, you go, hey, Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th and Halloween in the same month.
Tremendous, man.
Wow.
Getting really spooky around here on Mike and Mike.
We need some candy.
Any reason for candy? I don't know about Friday the 13th being associated with candy, but since it's close up to Halloween.
That's why I was doing it.
We'll make it work.
I was just kind of putting them together.
I like it. Adnan Virk in for Greeny, of course, alongside Golic. We are Mike and Mike, as always, presented by Progressive Insurance. All of our guests joining us in the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. It's been a minute, as the kids say. How have you been?
I've been doing well. You know, we're getting ready for the big transition here.
Can I get some bobbleheads? I know you guys are giving them away left and right.
Well, it depends on your tweets.
Okay.
You know?
So I have to do it by legal means. I can't just
exactly right.
All right,
that's exactly right. Don't worry. I'll slide you on. That's all right. I'll get you.
Is there one that is more coveted than others? Because I see everyone here making
the butt photo one. Yeah, when I did the butt photo one, we're not sure. I believe, in all honesty, and I may be putting words in her mouth, I think my wife wants it. I think she wants it for the nightstand. To gaze at it every night.
Gaze lovingly at it.
Exactly right. Oil up oil it up.
I think it should go the other way. I think Greeny's wife should get it, and then this is a nice.
Oh my God!
Also to gaze lovingly at it before going to bed. Hey, look, there's Mike.
That's probably the one, though. I would say the butt photo one is. Yeah, I'm not sure what we're going to do with that one.
I can't wait because this is a fun time. I'm sure for you and Mike both. You guys are reminiscing. You're going over great moments. So I look forward to all the stories and you guys.
Yeah. We'll have some. It's winding down.
And speaking of winding down, the baseball game has just ended. That's right. It is officially over.
Seriously, you have to be an unbelievable fan of baseball or either one of these teams who have stayed up for 4 hours and 37 minutes. Are you, or to be your job.
Correct.
To stay up.
Right.
And watch something like that. Seriously?
I felt compelled as a Baseball Tonight host, and like you said, it's part of my job doing the show with you. I'm like, all right, I've got to hang in here. But for the average person that works 9 to 5, how on earth could you justify? It was the 6th inning, and it was 11 o'clock.
That was crazy. I don't know how you do it. I don't get it. It's too long. But I don't listen. Not like I have an answer other than start at 2 hours earlier. But.
Right, that's the whole thing. Like, can you just go at 7 o'clock at the very least?
Yeah, I think 7 o'clock would be the perfect time. But they don't do it. West Coast would be 4 o'clock or whatever their reasons may be. But I think 7 o'clock would be the perfect time. You know what we do is we have this conversation every single year, every year, and then everybody who's not on the Eastern time just says, "Oh, shut up, you guys! It's East Coast bias. You're just worried about yourselves." Yes, we are.
I have a suggestion as you're winding down the program. Just topics that you've discussed the most in the history of Mike and Mike, because one of them has to be earlier start times for baseball and the whole situation of rust versus rest, which we will get into today.
Oh, my God.
Does it favor the Dodgers to have been rested, or is it Rusty now having to come back against a Cubs team that just came off this thrilling victory? We'll get to all of it right now.
Off the top.
Let's do a little off the top, shall we? Of course, football was last night as well, a battle of 4-1 teams. The Eagles held off the Panthers 28-23. 3. Carson Wentz threw 3 more touchdown passes, giving him 7 over the past 2 weeks. Wentz hadn't thrown more than 2 in any of his first 20 NFL starts. And watching the game, Mike, many observations, one of which is this. They really missed Lane Johnson, so it felt like every time the offensive line in the pocket was collapsing for Wentz, but he's got the wherewithal to make some moves and buy time. Obviously an improved receiving core, and the defense held up against Cam Newton.
Yeah, they did. And how about road wins? Carson Wentz has 3 road wins so far this season. And obviously, as you mentioned, throwing for the 3 touchdowns. But, they didn't he won 1 time on the road last year as a rookie, 3 times already this year. I love what we're going to get way more into this game. The tough part for Carolina, obviously the loss, but then the loss of Luke Kuechly out again in the second quarter in concussion protocol. He's missed games the last couple of seasons. I have a lot, to talk about with him. But the Eagles right now, you're talking about the best team in the NFC. You have to look at the Eagles and what they're doing with their ability to run the ball or have rushing attempts and just how much more comfortable Carson Wentz is in the pocket. And that Carson Wentz, Zach Ertz quarterback tight end relationship is one of you always see usually good ones with the good teams. These guys are hitting a really high level with it as well. You're seeing Christian McCaffrey getting way more involved in the Carolina offense, even though they're very short passes. 3 interceptions last night for Cam Newton. 2 weren't his fault.
Yeah, the receivers dropped balls and missed routes.
The first one, Fletcher Cox pushed the O-lineman right back into Cam's face, and the ball was tipped for a pick. Another screen to Stewart. It bounced off his hands into a defender. The third one was either just a bad throw or miscommunication. So you'll see 3 interceptions for Cam Newton, but 2 of them for sure not his fault, and they couldn't run the ball. We have this big stat now of rushing yards before contact. They were negative 1 yard, negative 1 yard before they were getting hit. Yeah. And if they didn't have Cam Newton's, 77 or 71 rushing yards, they had 89 total, I believe, in this game. 80 yards rushing total. Cam had 71 of them. So that tells you where that running game's going.
Amazing to think the Eagles, Jim Schwartz is defensive coordinator, number 2 right now in run defense. Right. That's how good they've been, how stout they've been. And I'm with you on Fletcher Cox. My eyes were open. Rex Ryan said last week in NFL Countdown, he thinks he's the best defensive tackle in the game. You get an argument from Aaron Donald fans and Dominican Sue. But Cox is such a difference maker.
He's in the conversation right there, and he was just taking Trey Turner. I was looking at that matchup, Trey Turner, Fletcher Cox. Trey Turner, one of the better guards. Fletcher Cox was winning all night long.
No matter what, you got to double team him, and even then, he creates other lanes.
Off the top.
As far as baseball is concerned, as Mike and I mentioned, the Cubs scored 9 runs in Game 5 on the road in Washington. They hold on to advance to the LDS against the Dodgers. Chicago had put up just 8 runs combined in Games 1 through 4 of the series. As for Dusty Baker, his teams have now lost 10 straight postseason closeout games, an MLB record according to Elias. That's stunning. I mean, listen, sometimes those records are the byproduct of the fact he's been around for so long, and Dusty Baker has managed so many good teams and been successful. But unfortunately, when it comes to winning the big one, he can't do it. And more importantly, Mike, the Nationals can't do it. Once again, a flameout in the NLDS again for this team.
Talking about that city, the Capitals, President's Trophy the last couple of years, and they can't get far either. So, I mean, they're just teams at the they're just underachieving. Yeah. And you wonder, when does the clock run out? Is it when Bryce Harper signs somewhere else for $400 million?
Which I think he will.
For this team, because they've loaded up, put themselves in position. The game last night was wild, with obviously the Cubs jumping out to that 1-0 lead, and then 4 runs for Washington in the second and a couple home runs. Michael Taylor hits another 3-run shot after a grand slam. So
that guy looks like he weighs 150 pounds, and he's hit huge home runs.
Then you get to the 5th inning, and Max Scherzer comes out for Washington. He gets 2 outs like it's nothing, and then all hell breaks loose. Yeah. All hell breaks loose for 4 runs. Things we're going to get into with replays at first base, on tags, on the catcher getting hit with the bat, on the third strike pass ball. A lot of stuff to get into. But the bottom line is the Nationals, you're right, another Washington team underachieving, failing to move on, and the Cubs going for back-to-backers, huh? Moving on.
That championship experience. Who can say that about the Cubs now? That championship experience they can rely on to dig through.
Off the top.
The Yankees and the Astros begin their ALCS in Houston this evening. Masahiro Tanaka, who was fabulous in Game 3, he's on the hill against Dallas Keuchel. Keuchel has dominated the Yankees, Mike, in his career, an ERA of just 1.41 in 6 regular season starts, the lowest ERA against the Yankees among all active starters. Full credit to New York for their comeback, coming back from 2-0 against Cleveland, but I love the Astros in this series. I think Their offense is great top to bottom, and obviously with Keuchel and Verlander at the top of that rotation, I think the Astros win this in 6. And for the Yankees, I feel like this was amazing to beat Cleveland. I don't know how much more they have left.
The Verlander deal worked out pretty well, huh?
Spectacular.
You think so? And Tanaka, who pitched so well, obviously not too long ago, has got, is what, a 10.38 regular season ERA against the Astros. I mean, just brutal in the 5 starts that he's had against them. He's had an 8.88, I think, ERA. So he hasn't pitched well against them at all. I'm with you. The Astros offense, I think, is too good.
Yeah.
The question to me, we brought it up from the last series, you think Joe Girardi stays. Whether the Yankees want him or the talk of Joe Girardi might want to leave on his own is going to be interesting, because all the talk of Friday, what happened the last Friday with not challenging the call, the players saved him from that, gave him vindication on that one by moving on. But still, you wonder if his future's up in the air.
I completely agree with you. It's an important topic. But here's what I find asinine. The thought that the Yankees, by winning Game 5, saved Joe Girardi's job. Yeah. Listen, if you want to fire him, you want to move on, that's fine.
Right.
But don't let one game determine the outcome of Joe Girardi. That's so absurd to me when people say that thing.
Completely agree.
But like I said, we'll talk more about baseball in a second.
Off the top.
And the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals has granted the league's emergency request to set aside an injunction in order to dismiss Ezekiel Elliott's case, meaning he now faces that 6-game suspension. The NFL says that suspension takes place immediately. Elliott's attorneys, though, say they are all exploring other legal options, and further appeals are possible. With the Cowboys on a bye this week, Elliott will not be eligible to return to the Cowboys' active roster until Week 13 against Washington if the running backs' legal team can't put the suspension on hold again. The Cowboys already off to a slow start, and now they're going to miss this vital piece out of the backfield.
Yeah, so they would have the bye, and then they play San Francisco, then Washington, Kansas City, Atlanta, Philadelphia. So, a couple of big games there, a couple in the division as well. Listen, we had talked to our legal expert, Ryan Smith, about this. If they didn't win this appeal, the NFL, it looked like Zeke would play the entire season, and we'd go on from there and see what would happen after that. But they get the appeal, so the suspension is upheld, or it'll start when they come back. Now we'll see. I don't know what the union has left. I mean, they're, as you said, they're going to explore all their opportunities or the options that they have to see if they can try and get it overturned yet again. That's where I need help, because, I need legal people to help me with this, because, a decision is made, an appeal is done, an appeal is heard, an appeal is granted. Now what happens? I mean, so the union will see if it's worth it, or at some point, do you just say, you know what, we're going to serve the suspension and be done with it?
Yeah, just for you and me and so many others. Ryan Smith, our legal analyst, will join us just under an hour from now to try to clarify the situation, what the Cowboys are facing with Ezekiel Elliott. That is off the top. The road to the World Series goes through ESPN Radio. Catch all the postseason action presented by AutoZone on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. Mike and Mike is presented by Progressive Insurance today. Our guest list for today, not only Ryan Smith at 7, but Herm Edwards is coming up just under 20 minutes from now. Jessica Mendoza at 7:30, Stu Gatz at 8, and Eduardo Perez at 9:30. What an eclectic list. Yeah. All phone guests joining us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. If you miss any of those guests, you can listen to all 4 hours of Mike and Mike on demand in the ESPN app.
So, this baseball game, to me, listen, I wanted to concentrate on that's one great thing about the clicker and previous channel is you can go back and forth.
Right.
But, man, this thing just lasted forever, that baseball game, forever. But, do you want to sit there and say exciting, back
compelling
and forth?
Drama, no question.
No question about that. Certainly some controversial plays in it, and you hate controversy to overtake a winner-take-all game, especially if there are plays in there that you feel really, really went toward deciding the outcome in it. Then that tarnishes it a little bit. But, boy, what a wild game.
Yeah, this is the thing. I think anybody who thinks, Mike, and we all do this, I'm guilty of it as anybody, always look at the starting pitching matchups. So going into last night, you say Hendricks was so fabulous in Game 1. I think once again he's going to be great. And instead, he doesn't come anywhere near close to the performance he gives. Similarly, for the Nationals, you say, all right, Gio Gonzalez, if he can give them 6 strong. No, that's not the case. It's a battle of the bullpens now when it comes to playoff baseball. That was the case in the wild card games, and now we saw it in the first round of the division series as well. So once again, this is foolish to try to say let's focus on the stars. Really, it's the guys who have more depth. And you're right about Scherzer. You think about a guy who's automatic. I try not to root for teams, but I do root for players because Max Scherzer is a great guy, and I love watching him pitch. So when he came in, I'm like, okay, here goes Mad Max. And instead, as you said, the house fell in on him, and you felt like now the tide turns again. Momentum shifts back and forth, but we get to the crux of the issue, which is this: instant replay. And the play you're talking about, Jose Lobaton, Wade Davis came into the game in the 7th. I mean, you talk about risky from Joe Madden. I'm going my closer in the 7th. And he would look like he was tiring. 28 pitches in the 8th. They already had a couple runners on. And then that snap throw, the pickoff to first base, and Lobaton is called out. And by the letter of the law, it is the correct call because Anthony Rizzo had the glove on. Ron Darling in real time said, listen, his foot came off. I don't think Rizzo had it at the right time. They watched the replay and they go, yep, actually he did. Rizzo had his glove on Lobaton just as his foot came off for the briefest of seconds. By the letter of the law, that is the correct call. He's out. The Cubs get out of the jam. But, Mike, it's awfully frustrating, I think, if you're a baseball fan, if you're a sports fan, and certainly if you're a Nationals fan. Of course, there should be an amendment to that rule that just says, listen, you should have some sort of common sense and judgment.
He was there. He was back.
Correct.
He was back. Again, for those that didn't see it, his foot was on the bag. He beat the throw.
Right.
But when his foot was sliding on the bag, it did come up. The foot was on the bag, and then it came up just for that split second, and Rizzo still had the mitten and the ball on him when it happened. So
replays for bang-bang plays, replays for home runs you can't tell, replay is for really egregious errors by umpires, not a ticky-tack play where a guy's foot comes off the bat.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is you have replay. Replay showed that technically he was out.
Yeah.
How do we want to amend replay and say, okay, we want to replay, but if he was obviously there and beat the tag, then everything else doesn't matter. I don't know if we can go that far. I mean, I get what you're saying. Because when I saw it, I thought the same thing. I said, God, he beat him.
Right.
I mean, he beat him there, but, we see the hidden ball trick. I mean, we see all kind of things that are a little goofy at times.
Right.
I said, well, technically we have replay. It caught him with his foot off the bag and still being tagged. While I agree with you, I would say I will disagree and say I don't want an amendment. I don't want to start messing with we have replay. Replay showed it. Make the call instead of we're going to do replay, now we're just making it even more convoluted. I don't think I want to go down that road.
It's like the spirit of the law versus like the letter of the law, right? And I agree that it was absolutely the right call they made last night, but it's frustrating. Yeah. The other major play you and I were talking about just as we were getting settled is Matt Wieters. And it looked like catcher's interference because the bat of the batter hit him on the back of the head, and you saw immediately Wieters saying it looked like he was saying a foul tip, but then after the replay, you see, no, he said I got hit in the head, should be a dead ball, and the runner advanced to first base. That was in the 7th.
It was a third strike. The ball passed Wieters, and as before he went back to chase it, the bat came around and hit him in the face mask. He made an errant throw, to first base that ended up out in right field. Runs are scoring, as we said, all hell's breaking loose. And then the thought was, well, wait a minute, if the bat hits the catcher and it interrupts the play, then the ump can call dead ball, and that's it. Nothing happens after that. You got the strikeout and no throw, no runs, no error, or anything like that. But the umpire didn't feel that it disrupted the play in any way.
The actual call, Mike, because on the call, watching the game, Ron Darling goes, Wieters is trying to say hit the helmet, dead ball. I've never heard of that. But no, the rulebook says if a batter strikes at a ball and misses and swings so hard, he carries the bat all the way around and in the umpire's judgment unintentionally hits the catcher or the ball in back of him on the backswing, it shall be called a strike only, not interference. The ball will be dead, however, and no runner shall advance in the play. So the Cubs scored a run on that. There should not have been a run scored.
So the ump can call, wasn't non-interference, so he can't call that, but it should have been a dead ball. 100%. According to that rule, right? Reading that rule, unless you read it wrong, which you've done in the past.
Reading is not my forte, so we want to double check on this. But Jeff Long at Jeff Long BP is the one who had this. Rule 6.03.
When you read it, I'd love to hear baseball's explanation of that.
Those are like the replay. You and I agree. That's the correct call, even though it feels unfair. Fortunate. This is a blown call, which scored a run for the Cubs in a game in which they won. In a winner-take-all game. You know how incensed the Nationals must be today?
The ball will be dead, however, and no runner shall advance on the play. Interesting, because it is a judgment call whether the bat hitting the catcher really interfered him in the play, and that's a tough one, too. I mean, games are bang-bang, right? And a split second of that ball hitting him and jarring him, and then he's got to run back and get the ball, and he makes an errant throw. If the bat doesn't hit him, maybe he's back there getting the ball a split second faster and makes a better throw. So it's very interesting to sit there and say, because you see him reaching up for his mask. Now, he may be doing that anyway to throw it off and go get the ball for the passed ball. But that rule is pretty – I'm really going to be interested to hear what baseball has to say about that.
That's what replay is for, plays like that. Is it not to go, hey, let's just double check on that.
Okay, wait, the bat hit him. Rule book says dead ball. Okay, strikeout, runners. Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow.
Dusty Baker, Nationals manager, speaking about what a strange, bizarre baseball game it was.
I mean, we didn't play a very good game. We still battled to the end, and we had far too many walks. They ended up scoring and haunting us, and that was probably one of the weirdest innings I've ever seen. With the third strike and then Baez hits Wieters on the backswing. Made a hit batsman that I thought looked like a foul ball from over there. And, had a catcher's interference. We gave away at least, 3 to 4 runs. And we had a lot of opportunities. I think we left 14 on base. And, this is a series of bad events. Then the 8th we were threatening. And then Lobe, he was safe, but then he came off the bag. It was just, like I said, a series of bad events. And, it really hurts, to lose like that, especially after what we went through all year long. And, it was tough.
Wow. Boy, he did list all the things that and we'd forgotten about the foul ball that the hits, they said it hits batsman instead of it looked like a foul ball.
Right. Dusty Baker getting his money's worth at the end there. I'll explain to you just how strange this was.
There was some, and I will be interested in baseball coming back and commenting on some of that. All that said,
yeah.
At the end of the game, you got Worth hits that shot in the 9th inning with 1 out that if it stayed fair but a curved foul could have tied the game up. So then he strikes out.
And speaking of Worth, how about that error? I mean, that was unbelievable. But it wasn't ruled an error.
I'm looking. It wasn't ruled an error where he took a knee to catch a ball, went right by him. Right. But he hits a long ball in the 9th that ends up going foul, and then it ends with Bryce Harper, striking out to end it. And we'll see in Washington. He got one more year, Bryce, before he moves on.
And I think he's moving on. Yeah, I think he's going to go where Yankees, you name it. Like you said, $400 million. I would have loved to have seen Dodgers Nationals for that reason alone. Kershaw versus Bryce Harper.
Right.
Not that I don't begrudge the Cubs Dodgers, because I think that's going to be a great series as well. The Washington could not get over that hump of getting out of the division series. Of course, the Dodgers haven't been able to get out of the league championship series. They've won 5 straight division titles, have not been to the World Series since 1988. So curious to see how that will shape out. One last note on the Nationals franchise, as Mike alluded to, the entire city has been so hamstrung when it comes to trying to come through. The Nats franchise 0-4 in winner-take-all postseason home games, the most wins without a loss of any team. That's should be the most losses.
Most losses without a win, yeah.
But that's brutal, the fact that you
have
home. All these opportunities. Remember the Drew Storen game, he blew it in 2010 when they didn't want to use Strasburg. You remember Matt Williams when he took out Jordan Zimmerman prematurely, even though he looked so good. And then last night, you've got so many wasted opportunities. Frustration certainly in the nation's capital.
I just saved hundreds of dollars by switching to Geico. I'm so happy, I feel like I can fly.
Disclaimer, you will not be able to fly by switching to Geico. This is against the laws of physics and nature. If you find yourself flying, please seek professional and or medical help immediately. In the unlikely event you find yourself flying, you might be a superhero, or a pigeon, or a superhero named Pidgewoman, who was bitten by a radioactive pigeon. If you are indeed Pidgewoman, Geico retains all licensing publishing rights in the event Pidgewoman the movie becomes a top-grossing Hollywood blockbuster.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Great to have our friend Herm Edwards in the house. How are we doing, Coach?
Yeah, it's good to be here. And fly, Eagles, fly, as they say in Philadelphia.
I am telling you, after all the conversation used to always be, the Thursday night football games are duds. Now we've had a good stretch of games, and last night was not an exception either. We'll get to Wentz in a second, but I want to talk to you because I love talking with you about defense, and the Eagles' defense specifically, and the job they did on Cam Newton. Number 2, run defense. Fletcher Cox is a beast. They weren't sure if he was going to play. Bradham was all over the place. He was creating plays. And the secondary, which was thought to be the weak point, the Achilles heel of defense, played really well against Cam. What did you say?
Yeah, they did a good job. It started with the rush. They play that wide 9 technique by those ends, and they get upfield and really kept Cam in the pocket for the most part and did a nice job. But once they contained him in the pocket, as you mentioned, Cox and Jernigan and those guys pushed the pocket. A lot of times we saw Cam Newton last night sitting in the pocket trying to throw the football, but was under duress. The first interception, actually, Cox pushes the guard all the way back on Cam. And now Cam is big. He's 6'5". I mean, and hit his arm kind of, he throws the interception. But I thought the defense of the Philadelphia Eagles dominated the line of scrimmage. That's where it started. That's where it ended. Look, Cam went back 52 times. Got sacked only twice, but this is the big number. 15 hits. Hit him 15 times. And you could see it. They were wearing him down some. A lot of those passes were high due to the fact that he was getting pressure inside the pocket. Philadelphia Eagles defense played excellent last night.
That's exactly right. And Fletcher Cox, you weren't sure if he was going to play. You saw him warming up out on the field, and you got the word he was going to play. And I was looking forward to that Trey Turner, the right guard for Carolina, and Fletcher Cox matchup. And that interior line, as you mentioned, between him and Jernigan. And you ask any quarterback, you see the blindside hits, which can certainly hurt a quarterback, no doubt about it. You ask a quarterback where he doesn't want the pressure, and it's straight at him.
Yes.
When he can't step into anything, when all that garbage is in front of him. And Fletcher Cox was just going straight back.
I mean, it was power rush. Yeah. It was no fair dodging. I'm taking you and I'm walking you back to the quarterback. Yes.
Yeah, it was certainly fun to see if you're a fan of the Eagles defense. And offensively, clearly they were missing Lane Johnson. But Carson Wentz, how many times do we see, Coach, immediately he senses pressure. He can buy time with his legs. He's not fast, but he can pick up yards where need be, and he creates on the run, which all great quarterbacks have to do.
Yeah, he's more athletic than people imagine. And you're right, his movement in the pocket. He has full control of this offense now. I mean, they really trust him with the ball, throwing it. He can throw it anywhere on the football field. The more he plays, the more confidence he has. And look, Ertz is this guy. We know that in the red zone. But the funny part for me is Aguilar. Aguilar last year basically was a guy that they benched.
Yeah.
I mean, his
expectations.
His mind wasn't in the game, whatever it was. Right. Last year he was struggling, and all of a sudden he's become a really nice receiver for him. They put him in the slot. Mm-hmm. He finds his way. Jeffries obviously has helped as well. I mean, so
Torrey Smith.
He's got some receivers to throw to now. They got a decent running game with Blunt. Blunt runs inside. They're a balanced offense. That's what I like about them. Early in the season, they were not balanced.
They're more committed to running the football now.
Early in the season, first two weeks, they were 44 passes, only 16 runs. Now they've begun balanced again. That helps their defense as well.
And when Lane Johnson, again, he was out. Halavudi Vaitai was in there.
Yeah.
He got beat early by Julius Peppers with the sack fumble. But Lane Johnson, when he's in there and Peters, that's two good bookend tackles. And what's interesting, Kelsey is about as tough as can be at center, but he's not big.
No.
Wisniewski, who's getting new life at left guard, not overly big. But they are running the ball well, even with those interior guys. Those two guys, particularly, not overly huge, but they are tough. They position well. They pass block. They pass block pretty well as well, but those bookend tackles I do like a lot. And when Lane's out, it usually does hurt them. But they do a nice job of running as opposed to Carolina, who didn't. I mean,
couldn't run it.
Of the 25 runs, it was Cameron it 11 times.
That's exactly right.
They couldn't get it going. But I really love the balance of this because early on, remember, they were throwing all the time. Like, run the ball.
Yes.
Just for attempt, run the ball. And,
exactly right.
Doug Peterson, I think understood that and said, I know as a quarterback, you like to just whip it around, but man, you got to have that balance.
And when you watch this game unfold last night, this was a physical contest. I mean, by both sides. It's not like Carolina backed down. I mean, Carolina's got a nice defense as well. This was a physical. Early in the game, it was hard to move the ball. The turnovers were a big factor, obviously. I mean, the two interceptions led to scores.
Yeah, and those weren't Cam's fault.
Yeah,
right. Those weren't Cam's fault.
The last one was a bad throw, obviously. Under pressure, but it was funny. Philadelphia, for the most part, rushed him with 4.
Right.
Carolina always brought the 5th guy. And both quarterbacks were under duress. I mean, this is one of those physical football games where quarterbacks were getting hit. They were throwing the ball. It was just a fun game to watch.
Yeah.
Carolina, they did 5 or more rushes on Wentz was 8 of 21 the times they did that. They blitzed 24 times, the most by any team this season. Carson Wentz, eventually he did figure it out, but he was getting hammered with it early. And you talk about matchups, the 2 touchdowns to Ertz and then Aguilar. See who was covering him? I mean, I know Shaq Thompson is a very athletic linebacker, but as a linebacker covering a wide receiver, I mean, that's just your mouth has to be watering if you're
especially when you're going casino, and casino means all money's on the table.
Yeah.
That means there's no free safety in the hole.
You got no help.
No help. And you got a linebacker covering him.
Yeah.
And the poor linebacker, he's sitting trying to inside knowing I got to stay inside, and Aguilar gives him a hard outside move.
That's
and
just
he jumps outside, he comes across his face, Wentz is almost laughing. He says, okay, I know where to throw the ball. It's just throw a slant, and it might be a touchdown. And it was, and it was one of those games where you just kept watching it. it was compelling because you felt like Carolina, at the end, can Cam close the game out and, didn't the first time he had the ball and he got it again.
Yeah, quick 3-0 by the Eagles.
Yeah, and then got it again and couldn't close the deal. You got to give Philadelphia a lot of credit going on the road, winning against a good football. This is the first team they've beaten with a winning record, actually.
Yeah. And listen, took advantage of the short field on the turnovers. Again, those two of the interceptions were not Cam's fault. Eagles took advantage of them. I know we're going to keep you here. We want to get into the rest of the things going on in the league, but you start to get tweets about people saying, you know what, isn't there someone that should step in and tell Luke Kuechly maybe it's time to hang it up? Boy. I mean, for those that didn't, Luke Kuechly again is out with the concussion protocol. The last 2 seasons he's missed multiple games. And when he was in there, by the way, Carson Wentz was 7 of 14 for 91 yards and no touchdowns. When he left, that's when the 3 touchdowns happened. The sacks happened less. I'll say this about him. Tony Romo said it on the broadcast. My son said it. Not only immediately after he played him in college, but since he's been here. Mike was the center against Boston College, I think Mike's junior year, when they played them, and Kuechly was the linebacker. Yes. Mike said it was unreal. He said the dude calls out the plays. He's so smart and studies so much that he calls out the plays and gets mad because his teammate, he's telling his teammate, I'm telling you where it's going, and we're not able to get it done.
Yes.
And he does the same thing, and Romo brought it up last night in the broadcast. This guy just knows where the plays are going to be. He is such a great player and a great leader, but man, Herm, you gotta start worrying a little bit.
Yeah, you're nervous. So you could tell when the guard came over and got him, and as soon as he hit him, you went, oh, this doesn't look good. It just didn't look good at all. And you're right, when he was gone, a couple of those dig routes that were coming inside when they were playing that zone coverage, the backer that took his place was not in position. And they hit it 2 or 3 times on big, crucial downs. They miss him. He's the quarterback of the defense. There's no doubt about it. Davis is a fantastic player as well, but Kuechly is actually the quarterback.
There. Yeah, exactly. He is, and that is a shame. So we'll see where it goes. Again, the last couple of years, he's missed multiple games with this. So we'll see where this situation ends up with him.
That is Mike Golic. I'm Adnan Virk and Greeny. We're Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Great to have Herm Edwards with us until the top of the hour. We'll slide into some baseball with Jessica Mendoza at 7:30 and Ryan Smith, our ESPN legal analyst, coming up 20 minutes from now. Ezekiel Elliott talk in just a second, Coach. But I did want to ask you, Eagles now at 5-1. Clearly the class of the NFC East. Where do you rank them among the best teams in the NFC?
Well, they're sitting up there with the Falcons, I think. I mean, if you look at it, you would trust the Falcons. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers with Aaron Rodgers. He's getting his tackles back now. I mean, so that's a team you always got to be concerned with. Those are the teams right now. Seattle is starting to make their move a little bit. At the end, they're going to be talked about. The Rams are interesting. Yes. This is a big week for the Rams. This is really kind of a big game for the Rams this weekend. So we'll see if they're for real or not. But when you look at the Eagles, they're sitting in good shape right now.
They are actually
they control their division right now.
They're home for the next 5 weeks, Herm, and their next road game is actually November 19th at Jerrysville versus the Cowboys. Kevin Nagani tweeting that out. So Philly right now looking in good shape.
Rams, by the way, at Jacksonville, whose defense is just
a big game for the Rams.
Sight right now. Yeah. So before I want to get to a game or two as well. Zeke Elliott, we know what's going on here. All the legal mumbo-jumbo. Again, we'll have Ryan Smith coming up in about 10, 15 minutes to explain where it goes next. But from a standpoint of coaching, now they do have a bye week, so I'm sure they'll be off this weekend. But if they don't know what's happening even into next week, so they're not sure how are they going to pursue this, how do you deal with Zeke during the week of practice? You keeping him out? You giving him some reps? How does that go?
You're going to give him some reps, obviously. You're going to anticipate that he's going to be here until someone tells you different. And I think they handled it right the first time when all this was swirling around. And they either way, was he going to be out? Was he not going to be out? Obviously, he got to play. They have 2 quality other running backs, but the problem is this: he's the most explosive player they have on offense. He's dynamic. Yeah. So all of a sudden, you remove him. I mean, you can put another back there, and you can say, we're going to run the ball. That's great. But the fear factor is not there. When he's in the backfield, there's a fear factor defensively because if your gap integrity is not correct, a 3-yard run from another back could be a 60-yard touchdown for this guy. That is no longer a possibility if he's not in the lineup.
And I guess the point, too, about Braxton, forget it, because Wooden starting next week, he can't even be at the facility.
Right.
So right now, since the
NFL won
the appeal, so he's gone. So the the suspension is in effect until maybe it gets turned over again. But to that point, he won't even be at the facility. So forget about practice. They won't have to give him any reps and practice at all.
When you look at their schedule, they play basically, if he's out.
Two division games, right?
Yeah, two division games in Washington and the Eagles. They play Atlanta, Kansas City.
Yeah.
I mean, so out of the 6 games that he could miss, 4 of them against winning teams, obviously, or 500 Washington. All the other teams are winning teams, and they play the L.A. Chargers, and then they play at San Francisco. So it'll be interesting.
It's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. The Straight Talk right now, the New York Giants. What a mess it is right now, Herm. How in the world do Ben McAdoo, Steve Spagnuolo fix this situation? It's not only bad on the field, but it appears to be bad off the field as well.
Well, you got to acquire some discipline because you can't let it start unraveling, especially inside the halls of the locker room. And this is why the Camardi deal, because this team has shown some signs of maybe not being as disciplined as it needed to be. When you're winning, it kind of takes care of itself. When you're losing, all of a sudden everyone has an opinion, everyone has a voice. And if you're in management or if you're the head coach, you got to say, look, we are still going to do things this way. We'll see if it works. This is a prideful football team. I think if you're a defensive player, they got to make a decision. The only way they can compete and win now is on the defensive side of football. The defense has to carry the team. It's not Eli's. I understand. It's Eli's team and all that. I get all that. But the defense actually has to carry this team if they're going to win games. There is no doubt about it. That's where all the skills at. Those guys are still in place. They played tremendous last year. Toward the middle of the season, they were one of the best defenses in football. Then they went up to Green Bay, obviously, and had to see number 12. But this defense is still intact. And it's going to have to play well for these guys to win games. If they don't hold the water, if they don't hold the team up, they're going to struggle.
So getting to meaningful games, since their season looks horrifically bad right now, you look at Green Bay at Minnesota, first meeting of the 2 this year, Minnesota 3-2, Green Bay just with the 1 loss right now. Aaron Rodgers coming off the game that he had, but what a big game for Minnesota here. That defense, you love that defense. Looks like they're just going to have to count on Case Keenum at the quarterback position for the time being. But that defense that gets Aaron Rodgers, what a matchup.
Yeah, and Zim's pretty good against Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers only 4-4. Against Coach Zim's defenses. So they feel pretty confident going in. They have a plan of how to keep him corralled and not allow him the explosive plays. And the key is this, is once he leaves the pocket, and everyone knows this, the back end of your defense, they got to plaster. Because that's when it really starts for Aaron Rodgers. Once he decides, I'm leaving, okay, we saw it against Dallas. He's sitting there and you're going, hey, man, there's only a minute left. No, he's not going to do it again. Yeah, he's going to do it again. You let him leave the pocket, he's going to do it again, right? And he just doesn't. And so this is why I think Minnesota has success against him, because they do a pretty good job of keeping him in the pocket, and they got good cover guys that can plaster in the back end. So this is going to be a really good football game.
Straight Talk Wireless, nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. How misleading is it the Jets and Patriots are both 3-2? So people think maybe it'll be a competitive game. I got the Pats winning by at least 2 touchdowns, Coach.
Well, the Jets defensively, they're carrying the team. This is what the Giants have to do. I mean, offensively, they're okay. I mean, they make a couple plays here and there, but it's their defense. Their defense are keeping the scores down. Now we'll see. New England's had 11 days to fix their situation.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Defense needs some fixing. Thanks so much, Coach.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. That's Herm Edwards. As always, you can find him on SportsCenter. Ryan Smith, our legal analyst, joining us next to explain the Zeke situation. It's Mike and Mike.